Did you know that when the first Pokemon movie was being localized for America, executives at 4Kids Entertainment thought that Mewtwo was too sympathetic of a character? Grossfield, the man in charge of localizing the movie, said that there needed to be a clear distinction between good and evil characters, basically just calling American kids stupid, which I mean... Because of this, Mewtwo's complex and layered character arc in the Japanese version was either edited out or just completely cut for the Western release. And no, I'm not exaggerating when I say that. They literally cut out the first 10 minutes of the original film. And that's not even at the tip of the iceberg. Apparently, executives at Warner Brothers reached out to Grossfield and proposed casting Leonardo DiCaprio as Ash Ketchum. While that part never ended up actually happening, I feel like the sheer fact that someone suggested the idea should tell you how little these executives actually cared about the franchise. Now, did these changes actually make the movie any better? Well, in Japan, critics surprisingly loved the movie because for a family-friendly franchise like Pokemon, the themes were really deep and introspective. While in the West, critics didn't like the movie at all, and it's currently sitting at a 16% on Rotten Tomatoes. And honestly, I can't help but agree with the critics for this. When I went back to watch the movie in Japanese, I found myself loving Mewtwo as a character, but I was also sad that the version I grew up with was so bland. The best part of Mewtwo's character is when he's asking questions like why he was created, what his purpose is, and where his destiny lies. These are all things that are at the forefront in the Japanese version, but are just significantly cut down in the Western release. So in this video, I'm going to go over those changes and show you how America ruined Pokemon's greatest villain. Let's first talk about the original Japanese release and its core staff. First things first, Mewtwo is directly inspired by the Phantom of the Opera. Kunihiko Yuyama, the director of the movie, was so inspired that he reached out to Ichimura Masachika to voice Mewtwo. That's this guy. He's the same actor who played the Phantom in the Japanese version of the play. And apparently it was obvious because when he read the script for the first time, he asked, isn't Mewtwo's character just Phantom of the Opera? The Phantom of the Opera is about the Phantom character being shunned by society due to their deformed face, despite the fact that they're very talented. The Pokemon movie is more about Mewtwo's existential crisis and understanding the very nature of his cloned existence. And honestly, that's some pretty deep themes for a kid's movie. But if you watch the movie in English, you wouldn't have gotten any of that. The majority of the time, Mewtwo is just a generic bad guy. After escaping from Giovanni, the Japanese version of Mewtwo asks, who am I? Who asked to make me? I hate everything that made me, so this is neither an attack nor a declaration of war, but revenge on you who made me. Now guess what he says in English? I will find my own purpose and purge this planet of all who oppose me, human and Pokemon alike. The world will heed my warning. The reign of Mewtwo will soon begin. But it gets even worse. At another point he says, with Pokemon and humans eliminated, the clones shall inherit the world. Okay, so I think you can get the picture now, right? They turn Mewtwo into an evil genocidal dictator who wants to take over the world with zero redeeming qualities. This Grossfield guy is pretty talented. He should go work for Marvel or something.
People keep on criticizing our villains. How about, I don't know, personality, charm, nuance, some kind of sympathetic quality? How about he's Doctor Strange, but he's the evil Doctor Strange?
Now, if you watch the Japanese version, you'll find that this idea of one's existence and what it even means to be alive is at the forefront of the movie the entire time. And we're hit with this deep and layered idea immediately. It's introduced to us in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Yeah, I'm talking about the first 10 minutes that were completely cut out for Americans. I'm going to quickly summarize what happened because this original intro sequence is actually really important to understanding Mewtwo as a character. The first new thing revealed to us is that Dr. Fuji, the scientist who made Mewtwo, began researching cloning so he could clone his daughter Amber, who passed away in a car accident. In this scene, we see her daughter Mewtwo and some other Pokemon chilling in the cloning devices. Later in the sequence, we see all the clones having a conversation telepathically in kind of a dream world. Now, I would normally play the movie clip of the whole conversation here, but Pokemon will copyright strike me, so I'm just gonna read the lines. Check out my Patreon for the uncut version with the clips. Now, while talking to Amber 2, yes, Fuji literally named his clone daughter Amber 2, Mewtwo asks, Pokemon? Person? Which one am I? She responds with, it doesn't matter. You and I are the same after all. Then we see the clones having fun, flying around. Amber shows them parts of her memories, but suddenly the clones start fading away. And Amber realizes that she's next, so she tells Mewtwo that it's time for her to go. Mewtwo starts crying, not understanding what's happening. And in Japanese, Amber explains that usually only humans can cry of sadness, insinuating that since Mewtwo's crying, maybe Pokemon and humans aren't that different. In English, Amber talks about a bedtime story. Her dad used to tell her about how Pokemon tears are filled with life. And I honestly don't hate this change. I mean, it's not a direct translation, but it does tie up the movie. movie, and it connects to the ending a lot better. I just can't understand why they went through the effort of dubbing this scene to throw that away. Like, it directly foreshadows the ending where all the Pokemon cried to bring Ash back to life. She continues to comfort Mewtwo and says, "Please don't cry, stay alive, I'm sure it'll be fun," as she fades away. Now, after seeing his clone friends disappear before his eyes, Mewtwo understandably has a panic attack, but the shock hits him too hard, causing Mewtwo's mental state to become unstable. The scientists then have to tranquilize him, and he forgets all of his memories related to Amber and the clones. From the first 10 minutes alone, we are already introduced to Mewtwo's core conflict. In fact, the scriptwriter for this movie, Takeshi Shudo, wrote in his weblog that Amber, who was actually named I in Japanese, was named to highlight the film's overall message of self-existence, with I being similar to the English word I, as in, what am I? Who am I? Reading more of Shudo's blog, apparently the first draft of the script had many lines where Mew teases Mewtwo, saying, "After all, you are nothing more than a copy." Mew was actually supposed to have a discussion with Mewtwo where she questions his very existence. Quote, "What Mew wanted to say to Mewtwo was, a copy is just a copy. I cannot tolerate the existence of copies made by humans. Everyone would be like that. Can you allow a copy of yourself to exist?" But this planned discussion never actually ended up making it into the movie. The staff at OLM couldn't think of a voice that was both innocent but cruel at the same time, so they opted to just remove Mew's dialogue. But interestingly, all of Mewtwo's lines remained exactly the same. So in the Japanese version, Mewtwo and Mew are still having this conversation while fighting, but we just don't know the full context. In that same scene with the clones fighting their originals, we hear this conflict described through the dialogue of the characters around them. In the Japanese version, Nurse Joy asks, "What is this fighting? Both the real ones and the copies are alive now." Brock says, "Though they were created, they are living beings that live in this world." And Misty finishes it off by saying, "The real ones and the copies, but both of them are the same living things. There's no such thing as winning and losing." Everyone understands at the end of the day that clones are living beings that exist. You can't deny their consciousness. That's the core message of this. Now, what do you think the brilliant team at 4Kids Entertainment translated this part to? Did they keep any of the revelations that deep down all living things deserve to live and are one and the same? Nope. Nurse Joy instead says, "Pokemon aren't meant to fight. It's useless. What can come of it?" Brock says, "Why can't Mewtwo understand that it's not right to force Pokemon to battle this way?" And Misty, Misty, she says, "They're all living creatures. This just proves that fighting is wrong." Okay, so they basically changed the message of this movie to fighting is wrong. That's totally fine for a Disney movie, but this is the Pokemon movie, the franchise that is literally built off of Pokemon fighting with other Pokemon. Don't tell me that these battles are wrong when I've been grinding my Charizard to a level 100 by eliminating the local Weedle population. And as much as I love this ending scene where Ash gets caught in the middle of Mew and Mewtwo and all the Pokemon cry together to save him, it just loses a lot of impact due to the exclusion of that beginning scene with Amber and Mewtwo, where Amber tells Mewtwo to not cry and to enjoy life because it's wonderful, where Amber tells Mewtwo that humans and Pokemon are one and the same. Seriously, when I was rewatching the English dub after watching the Japanese version, I realized just how much of a worse movie we in the West got. All of the subtle and interesting themes from the original were replaced with the most bland messages that don't even fit within the context of the movie or this franchise. I especially think back to when Shudo explicitly says in his blog, "When I think back to when I was writing Mewtwo Strikes Back, I still can't stop thinking about what am I and what is self-existence." This philosophy was clearly a huge part in writing this movie, but sadly it was completely rejected in favor of trying to appease a younger audience by being less complex. Now, to be fair, this idea of existentialism does eventually arrive to American viewers through Mewtwo's admittedly brilliant quote, "I see now that the circumstances of one's birth is irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are." While this is easily the best and possibly only redeeming part of this dub, it's too little too late. When I was reading Shudo's blog about writing the movie's screenplay, I just can't help but feel like the American localization team completely butchered his vision, diluting the movie down to the most basic interpretation of good and evil. Like, it's so clear that he spent an insane amount of time trying to create a captivating experience for kids and their parents alike, only for American producers at 4Kids to just spit all over it. And these changes didn't sit well with the original Japanese writers and producers for obvious reasons. Mewtwo isn't supposed to be an evil villain who wants to take over the world and claims that all clones are superior to the originals. He's supposed to be a sympathetic villain, struggling with his identity. And I think this article by Rafael Motamayor says it best. All Mewtwo wants is answers to the question regarding its identity, purpose, and most of all, value. Mewtwo then decides that the best way to do this is by testing its power. If Mewtwo is stronger than the strongest Pokemon trainers, or even Mew, then surely its life has value, right? If you only watch the movie in the English dub, you probably missed a lot of this philosophical discussion, and I really hope you go back and watch it again in Japanese. Not only is the voice actor for Mewtwo perfectly fit the role, but the movie is just so much more impactful when you can sympathize with Pokemon's greatest villain, Mewtwo. That's pretty much all I have for this video. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.